All right, suckers. What's going on?
No boomer rage. No boomer rage tonight. No.
What up, dudes?
There will be boomer rage. At least in the comments. Nick will be in the comments. There will be some boomer rage there for sure.
There's a bit of boomer rage in all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think it is? What do you think he would lead with right now? Let's play that game. What would Nick lead with right now?
This wasn't a show for him.
Wow.
He would have led with Brad saved his job.
Welcome back.
No, this was a very expected bounce.
This is a show for Bobby. This is why Bobby's back.
This is more my speed. So I'm glad I missed Freak Out City over the weekend, and it was rock bottom for this team. It was well-deserved criticism for them. But all this talk of the beginning of the end of Brad Stevens and this team's demise as a whole, premature. You know, there's a lot of issues here. There's a lot of stuff we're going to have to hash out in terms of roster adjustments and everything else. But there's pieces to work with here, and I think this team's closer to needing a few minor adjustments than being a constructual failure from the start and not being able to be redeemed. That tonight was another example of that. When you get your rotations down in a good way, when you lock in defensively as this team did, good things are going to happen. So it's a consistency factor right now. But John, all the credit to you. You called out almost every adjustment that they need to make here and predicted a lot of the stuff that we're going to see tonight. So I'll give that all to you. Aaron Nesmith and Robert Williams extended run. Both work fantastic here, and the bench was the difference in this game.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's Brad. The key takeaway here is Brad Stevens obviously watches this show and took some cues. And that's obviously all that really had to happen. You play the kids and then you live with it. But this always happens. It's the post-team meeting game. It's the post-rock bottom game. Exactly. It's the post, in this case.
Nuggets had no one, too.
It's the post, Danny goes running to the media to cover for his coach and kind of tacitly, call out the players. And that's how you call out today's modern-day NBA players, by the way, what Danny did over the weekend. And we'll get into that.
They read the Boston Herald.
Harold, look, Danny volunteered to do 2 interviews with the 2 major papers in town, and to basically, by saying it's on me because I picked these players, saying these players are playing like bums. So he took some heat off Brad for sure. And we'll get into some of Ainge's comments later. But let's start with tonight. Again, you had a few things going on. The number one, again, we could easily run through the most important things that happened in the game, but it's really hard not to look at this and say that this was kind of like the Aaron Nesmith game. And not because he played great. I thought he was pretty okay. But he did – he was the first guy off the bench. That mattered. He played 23 minutes. Yeah. A lot of people were saying maybe he was rewarded for his effort, because he was running around like crazy. He still looks pretty tentative and lost at times, but, he's trying. And this is what we talked about. It's not that Aaron Nesmith – and we were arguing about this on our thread all day. It's not that Aaron Nesmith's better than the players out there. He's not better than Semi. He's not – but you want him to be. You got to give him a shot. You got to live and learn with a little bit. I'll take an effort like this every single time if he's out there. Totally imperfect. At times he disappeared. But, I mean, nothing but positives off of tonight, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm with you. I mean, I didn't think he looked amazing out there, but he looked a little more comfortable than we've seen him before in the past, right? And I also think that the rest of his teammates are starting to realize, okay, they're starting to look for him now more often. And I think a lot of that has to do with his effort. I mean, you're putting effort on the defensive end of the floor, especially in the game against the Denver Nuggets. I think that went a long way. And I think they rewarded him. They were looking for him for open shots. And credit to him, he wasn't afraid to take those. So much credit to the rookie. But, I mean, is this the norm now? Is this like the rotation? This is it? The Celtics just fix it? Is this all it took for everyone to just panic real quick and then the Celtics come out here and beat the Nuggets and now all the problems are solved? No, come on.
No, but we debated it a little bit.
No, I know. I'm just sort of responding to Bobby, being like, here we go, guys. This is a rotation.
Right.
Cemented, guys. This is it. Like, no, I don't think it works that way.
It is, but
it's a big win against a talented Nuggets team. And that
Jimmy,
boy,
let me ask you,
is no joke. He was on pace to drop 50 if it wasn't for the Celtics.
Well, let me ask you, Jimmy, if it's an effort thing, what who do you think? Do you think what do you guys read into not seeing Grant or Teague tonight? To me, if you're concerned about effort and then guys don't play in a game after, you're saying I'm not seeing effort, that has to lead me to believe that these are the guys you don't think are putting in effort. And I don't know that for sure, but that's a strange message to send. Just a DNPCD a couple of guys after you basically say, we're not playing hard enough. Kemba says it. Danny says it. Then you see a couple of guys completely disappear from the rotation. That's not a good sign. Teague, we know. Teague's going to be shot out of a cannon into the sun once they have a full roster here. He's going to be bought out. He's not going to finish this team. There's no reason to complain about Teague anymore. There is no Teague. Okay.
No, that's a good point because I thought of Grant Williams
they
tonight.
should just hand him off to Atlanta at the end of the week.
I thought about the fact that he didn't take any shots last game, and I think that doesn't bode well with Brad Stevens. He's like, hey, you've been getting a lot of reps out there.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's not more of a you're not working hard enough or an effort thing. It's more of a are you still afraid to take these shots? Because I got a line of guys that are willing to take that spot if you're not willing to.
Right. What are you doing out here? You know, we talk about bench guys. You want them to come in and give a spark. You know, I think that's as much as why Nesmith plays. I don't know whether something comes up on high from Danny, which is to say, so I got you some guys. Maybe try to use some of these guys, you know, because this is a fallback all coaches have. And again, we talked about it. Belichick did it to the point that he drove fans crazy. He wasn't playing Winovich and Uche and all of the younger rookie type guys in a team where you're like, what are you playing these old losers for? Like the John Simons and the blah, blah, blah. It's very analogous to what's going on with the Celtics. It's safer to play guys who you have some experience with who are going to do the things that you want to do, but your ceiling it can only be so high. And this is the argument for living and dying with Rob Williams, occasional brain farts. First time he tries to guard Jokic, he falls for an up fake and Jokic walks right by him. Great. Then he goes down the other end, boom, tips an offensive rebound, hits a baseline jumper, and it's great. It's negated. It's a positive and a negative. He does too many positive things to leave him off the court. I think a lot of these guys do. So you got to live with the bad because the ceiling is so much higher with some of these guys.
Yeah, I think when we saw Rob, Pritchard, and Nesmith in the first quarter, I think collectively our heads just popped right off. I mean, that's like how many times have we screamed into this camera here and just said, why are these guys not playing? Like, we don't understand it. Like, what did they do wrong that they can't get on the court?
The Detroit one on Friday, especially.
Yeah, exactly. So seeing them in the first quarter and get some actual meaningful minutes in playing well and giving them energy and showing a spark, I think that's what it was more than anything. And at that point, if you're Brad, why even go to Grant? Why go to Teague? I don't think – listen, we already mentioned it. Teague is who he is. Grant, he's not like a – you know, I know that he made a start and he's been playing more minutes than maybe we thought he would, but Brad's not sending a message by sitting those guys. He's just sitting them because they aren't good and they aren't playing well and they're not helping them win. So let's not overthink it. Be like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to send a message to Grant Williams and Jeff Teague. No, listen. If Tatum and Brown and those guys didn't play tonight, or if they had their minutes cut in half, that's a message. But you know, not playing Grant and Teague doesn't mean anything to me. What it means is that maybe Brad's finally coming around on some of these other young guys and guys like Rob. So when Rob's in the game, I mean, he's one of the best PERs in the NBA, and he's averaging 14.
Jimmy loves PER now. He's been glued to that page.
I'm not a huge PER guy, but I'll use it in this case because, I mean, why the hell else does ESPN pump it all the time? It must mean something to a lot of people. So in that sense, Rob should be playing twice as many minutes as he's playing. I mean, statistically speaking, with the production that he's putting up with that stat. So again, I mean, I'm not saying Rob Williams is the savior, but he should be playing more. So,
Bobby, you explain this, okay? Because you represent kind of the faction of people out there who are who don't take the bait. Well, no, who don't take the bait, so to speak, okay? You know, you have the Rob Williams overreactions, and many of them unwarranted, and maybe last year people were clamoring for more Rob when he wasn't ready. Every single thing about him this year says he's more ready. What, again, do you think the hesitation or reluctance is there to play? And, again, we know, like, oh, it's not a great matchup for him. You know, having him disappear for an entire playoff series last year, that just makes no sense to me, given, again, the positives, I think, outweigh the negatives. Are you so afraid for what he's going to do defensively or the lapses that he's going to have that you can't figure out that there's, like, not you, but, like, what – Brad or whatever can't figure out that, oh, there's some good and some bad, and I'll live with it, especially when the counter is Tristan Thompson, you know, I mean, which Thompson was fine tonight. But again, you look at those two guys, and I just don't understand how you would play one more minutes than the other.
Well, it's better than last year if we're going to compare it to that. There were games where Rob didn't play period last year, and now
which I don't get. I never got it. It's the same argument with Neesmith. He should have been playing 10, 15, 20 minutes every game last year.
Well, he's been better this year, and they found ways to get him involved this year on a consistent basis. We didn't like the way he was doing it with double bigs and all that stuff, and then eventually he got back to just finding Rob in rotation with the bench unit, and that works comfortably so far. We kind of had a similar conversation with Pritchard too. Oh, why don't they start Pritchard? Why isn't he getting bumped up here? Well, they put him in a good spot to succeed against these bench units, and it worked again today with him and Rob. They just crushed second units with Tatum out there playmaking. So it's as much staggering them in the good portions of the game as anything else. And that's another thing I think Brad has done fairly well this year. I mean, all this criticism of him is putting guys in the right situational minutes to find success. I mean, if you threw Rob out there in a spot start today against Jokic, this probably would have gone much worse for Rob and the Celtics as a whole here. Thompson didn't have a great game, but he's a sturdy presence and had a okay performance against Jokic. I mean, even Anthony Davis wasn't stopping some of those shots.
Wait a second. Who had an okay performance?
I thought Thompson was okay here.
I mean, what do you determine okay?
All right, I mean, John, he's going against Nikola Jokic, who's third in the MVP race, and Rob gets to clean it up against Isaiah Hartenstein.
How much work? What could Jokic have done better in the first 15 minutes that he played tonight than he did? Like, is it possible for a human to play better? So nobody slowed him down. Nobody did okay. Like, he literally had a near perfect half. So
yeah, but my point is
not do pretty good on him.
That's not my point. My point is Thompson just went up and
I thought he was okay.
In the way, and then Rob got to play the secondary minutes and destroy Isaiah Hartenstein. If you put Rob against Jokic and Thompson just being a net neutral with Isaiah Hartenstein, it would have been a different game. You put Rob in a position where he can just destroy the opposing center in the bench unit, which I think is a smart way to handle this right now. Now, ultimately, as we talk about some of the changes on this team that they can make, you can get Tice out of here. You can get Thompson out of here, which I'm all for either one of those ideas at this point to get Rob more minutes, because I agree with you. He should be playing more minutes. I don't think he should be starting. And I feel the same way about Pritchard. We saw Pritchard struggle immensely in a spot start over the weekend against Detroit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I've been saying the whole time, you don't need to start Pritchard. Once Marcus Smart comes back, just let Pritchard come off the bench. What he gives you off the bench is fine. Let's not rush him into something that he's not comfortable with, or he's just not there yet. You have a good thing. You have some depth coming off the bench. Keep it that way. They went with a 9-man rotation tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 9-man rotation. True 9-man rotation. When Smart comes back, I assume Green is out. So I mean, those are your 9, and then you got Tice. So I guess I don't know what you're going to do there, if there's still a trade to be made, or if they go to a 10-man. But finally, you didn't get like the 13, 14 guys that Brad's been, putting out there every game. And you're just like, why is Carson in the game? Why is, Teague, and, why are these players playing when you have a Neesmith and a Rob and a Pritchard and whoever else on the bench? So this just made more sense tonight. And I don't know if Sunday's
a great rotation
had anything to do with it. I don't know if Brad had to take a harder look at things, and maybe he spoke to some of his stars like Jason and Jaylen, and maybe they said the same thing. Like, why are we playing 14 guys every game? Like, I don't know. But something was different tonight. I'm not saying Jason Tatum didn't have a great game either, but I mean, something was different.
Approach was different. It was obvious from the get-go. They weren't set for shots early. They got into bad habits late, but in the beginning, it was great. The distribution, a ton of assists early. They did fall into that little trap where they started kind of just jacking him. Tatum had not a great stretch in the third where he was forcing a few shots. But for the most part, their approach, they clearly went in today and they're like, we got to distribute the ball more and play with higher energy. They did. And then Brad, as we said, shortened the bench a little. Josue, I cut you off. Jump in there.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that because I think they went into the approach was different because obviously what's been going on the last couple of games. Obviously the pressure of, what Brad Stevens and what Danny Ainge said to the media, this is a big spot for them. And I think, to also piggyback on Jimmy's point about the second unit and Rob Williams, I think between him and Pritchard, those two could be the anchors right now. I don't know if that's going to be the case for the entire course of this regular season, but I like when those two are out there. I like to see Javonte out there as well. That energy coming in, off the bench, playing against the second unit of the Nuggets, they outscored them in that first half, and it wasn't even close. And I just think that continuity is going to be so important, because at the beginning of those stretches where the second unit has to come in and sort of hold the fort, and whether it's Jaylen out there or a couple of other starters out there, those three are going to be really important, or at least between Pritchard and Robert Williams. I look for those two to anchor the second unit, and I don't.
Rob's been fantastic.
That's most beneficial for him instead of starting. He's better in that role.
And to go off what I was saying before about Rob, there were minutes in this game where he had to rotate against Jokic, and I saw one of the commenters said as well, he did a good job. There was one play where the Nuggets kind of got screwed on a foul call. He was rolling toward the basket, and they called it on the floor. Rob got right back in the lane and forced a turnover there. The steals, the fourth quarter rebound, and Jokic was out of gas in the fourth, and that's when Rob really took it to him on the boards. There was a triple chance opportunity that the Nuggets had that they couldn't convert because Rob was in there holding in the space in the middle. I don't think Rob's stronger end of the floor has been defense this year, but this was a good defensive game from him and the team.
Again, he is what he is in that regard. He's a good help side defender, and he's a deterrent in the rim there. And he's got active hands. So I mean,
awesome rebounder too. I can't believe how good he's gotten at that.
Rebounding is great. He just gets up quick and he gets the ball. So I mean, he does so many things well. I do think you're right. That pool of what he doesn't do well is shrinking to the point that it doesn't. I'm not concerned anymore. And you're right, Bobby. It's different than last year. We talked about, this series isn't for Rob, but to not play, and this series isn't for Cantor. Just to have these guys disappear for an entire series at a time is strange. Like, are you that afraid?
Right. We've had this conversation, but the center position this year, it's not much better, but it's better overall.
Well, speaking of it, Daniel Tice obviously didn't play tonight. Celtics win the game. We're talking about Rob. We're talking about Thompson holding his own. To the Celtics, is Tice an expendable player? Because he is a guy that is tradable, and there don't seem to be many of them on the Celtics if they are looking to make some sort of move.
Well, he's tradable because he's cheap and he's on an expiring.
Right. And he's playing a position where they have other players that can play the position.
I think
he's valuable too.
He rounds out a trade. He might be more valuable to you than he is to someone else. To someone else, I think it's a throw-in on a deal because you're trading him to someone that doesn't need him, nor do they want him. So he doesn't have really value to anyone else.
Yeah.
To anyone else, he's $5 million. That's it. Because he's expiring, and that's it. You're just rounding out a deal. You're trading him to a team that's out of it. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't have value because you're not trading him to someone who wants him.
Tice gets talked about on the show like
you barely have any players that can. But
it's not that he's not good.
The trade needs.
If he's in a trade, he doesn't have value because you're acquiring him.
There's no team in the NBA. If they trade him right now for PJ Tucker, which is an idea I floated before, the Rockets would be absolutely thrilled about that. It would solve their center issues right now that they're going through. They would keep him long term as their backup center. You might be able to
trade strength for strength there. You might be able to do that.
He's valuable. He's a good player. I mean, this guy, I'm not saying he's Al Jefferson 2008, but he's
I was thinking
a good
rolling
player.
It up for a bigger – and to me, that would be a team that's out of it. But you're right. You could trade strength for another competitive team that needs something that they don't have. Yeah.
Yeah, so I ultimately think that Tice does need to go just because I think he's going to be more valuable than what they're able to keep here. And they're going to have to think about Rob Williams' extension possibly at some point down the line. So Tice just doesn't factor into the future here. Even though I love him, even though he's been a great player here for a couple of years, I think he's going to have to be involved in some sort of deal here just to, give another team a piece that they would want and to clear out the center spot a little bit here, especially if they actually do end up going with a center or front court player like that Young or Vucevic here. They're going to need to kind of trade out some pieces to keep some spots open here. So I think Tice, it's tough because I would love to keep Tice around and have him be the starter. He's been the best center on the team this year, but he's not going to be around. So it would just be kind of stupid to keep him and have him be another bench guy who just leaves for nothing at the end of the year.
A lot of people are saying trade Thompson. I don't know if you can trade Thompson right now, dude.
I've said that too, but I've talked to a handful of people who think you can. $9 million's not that much, so
it's not. It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. So he would be part. I think what you mentioned.
It's another
John,
thing, though. Nobody really wants him or needs him, right? I mean, it's similar to.
Yeah, he'd just be money in a deal. So the Celtics have a hard cap situation. So even though they can take in up to $28 million in a TPE deal, they can't actually get there. I think it's like 20 million, John, last time we talked about this.
It's 20
so,
is what the Celtics can use of that 28, essentially.
Yeah, so if they could send out 9 of Thompson there,
so you got to
that's
send
what
it.
they'd
You
have
got
to
it
do.
right to get the 26. Like a Vucevic, for example, is 26. To get that and fit it in under a hard cap, you
You'd have to trade
fold
Thompson.
something else in.
Yeah.
Right. But you could do it with Tyson another body because Tyson's 5 plus another 1 or 2. So you could find a way. You find a way to make it work if you're going to do it. The TPE is the bulk of it, and you're going to move bodies in addition. Before we move on to that stuff, because we're going to get there for sure. What do you guys think of Tatum tonight? Because we did find out before the game in his and Bobby, you were in. You were in the media availability earlier today with Tatum, and he said he's still having issues with his breathing from COVID, having a tough time catching his breath up and down the court, which, again, this is no joke. You know, it is what it is, but might explain some of his recent kind of crap play or lack of effort. I mean, from an effort perspective, the last game was the worst game we've seen him play. He just looked totally disengaged. Even though he's had worse shooting nights. Then he goes out tonight and it's better. It's kind of one of those like bad shooting Tatum games, where he contributes in a lot of other ways. Forced some shots, couldn't hit from 3, got to the line a little bit, had a couple drives late, which were actually key to holding off that lead there. So that was pretty good. Made a couple terrific passes, including the one from his ass. So, I mean, he did some things, but it was another kind of weird Tatum game.
Yeah, definitely. But he didn't rush it. He didn't force the issue, which is the kind of Tatum that we were complaining about, that in the bubble a couple of times, and every now and then we talked about every 15 games, I think it was last season, you get one of those stinkers out of Tatum. It was, again, what you said, especially down the stretch, attacking the rim. He did take more 3-pointers than I thought. I was a little surprised. I was thinking 1 for 7 or 1 for 6. I guess it was 1 for 8. But to getting his other guys involved, getting his teammates involved, like he didn't hold the ball for too long. And the same thing could be said about Kemba Walker. It was like almost as just when you start to get that feeling when you're like, all right, keep the ball moving the way it's been going all night. That's exactly what they did. Both of them did. And much credit to Kemba, of course, for attacking the rim and converting this time around. It felt like last season a little bit.
Yeah, his shot is still off, obviously. That's been the biggest that's been the most noticeable thing for me is his efficiency, like his field goal percentage since coming back has been way, way down. I didn't really notice like that he wasn't, I didn't really notice the wind aspect or like the hustle aspect until Sunday. I think he'll be fine. I mean, he's too good of a player to only rely on his shooting. Like on the games where he can't hit hit buckets, 1 for 8 from 3, he's got to be able to do other things because he's going to be getting 30 minutes a game, whether or not he's shooting or not. So we better find other ways to be effective, whether that's passing, whether that's rebounding, defense. So I don't think anything he really did tonight stood out. Couple turnovers that kind of stood out to me actually, and a couple ugly shots, couple bad shots. But he's still got to be one of their go-to guys down the stretch. So he's going to have to find other ways to get going or get his teammates going. So I think that was definitely the difference on Sunday, from today to Sunday when he just didn't do anything.
Well, offensively, doesn't it look like he's not in a rhythm at all offensively?
No, he's laboring.
And it's those times. Remember the stretch last year where people were killing him for taking too many contested 2s? Then it was like, okay, I guess I don't take them anymore. And then for a little while there, he was like, but this is what I do, this is my game. And then it kind of took him out of his game, and he didn't know this felt a little like one of those games, which is like, I saw a lot written and a lot said in the last day or two about Celtics shot selection, and just how that's one of the things that's really kind of tanked them in the last little bit here is, you had, and I think it was covered up by Brown shooting an ungodly percentage from mid-range for so long that it masked the fact that that's what they were mainly relying on. They're very low in points at the rim in the league. They're really low in like wide open, uncontested 3s. And really the majority of their shots are from 2, and they're not hitting them at a very effective clip. Walker, who did last year, isn't doing it this year. Brown was out of his mind, and now he's regressed to the mean. And Tatum has once again relied on him way more than he should and way more than he used to, almost back to what he did in his rookie year, and he's not hitting them at a high clip. So this is the player he thinks he is, and that's what he takes to get him going, is to hit these tough contested mid-range shots, but it's just not the right thing for him. You see the difference late in the game here when he went hard to the hoop a couple of times, and when he did it a couple times early. It's just a different game. But when he gets into that rhythm where he's just dribbling and settling, I think he's off. Like he's just off, and he's been in that zone for a little while now.
This continues the process of him transitioning to being the point guard of the team. There's going to be a lot of bodies in front of him on the way to the rim. There's going to be a ton of contact there. So sometimes he's going to have to try to float it over that wall from 2. And he's going to be looking to get other guys involved. There's just a lot that he has to process when he's in that position of being the point guard for full games as he has been recently. But we're seeing some other benefits to that as well. Kemba Walker looks really good off the ball. Like, he has been outstanding the last 2 games, I thought, and finding a comfort, not only shooting threes off the catch, but even early in this game, getting on the back line and dribbling to the basket and hitting his first 2 shots inside. We now have 2 games in a row where he's been able to finish at the basket, which this offense doesn't have a ton of because he struggled to do that on the ball as the point guard himself. Tatum's running into contact there, not always getting to the free throw line, though he did tonight. And Brown as well is pretty much the only other guy on this team that goes to the rim, aside from Rob Williams and Tice sometimes on rolls. So this team doesn't have a lot of rim threats on them right now. They're more of a jump shooting team, and I know you guys said this over the weekend. I heard Charles Barkley say it on a podcast, and Brad says it all the time. This can't just be a team. Joe Sway especially has said this can't just be a team that shoots a ton of shots, and if they go in, great, it's the Toronto game, and if they don't, it's, we didn't make shots. There's got to be other ways to do it. There's got to be adjustments. There's got to be flexibility as a team stylistically, and this is for the role players especially. You know what I love that Nesmith did in this game, John? He got into the lane a couple times, dished the ball out, went inside and out. Rob does that too, the vertical spacing as we talk about. Like, there's got to be other outlet options on this team, and they found them tonight, finally.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think Jason Tatum has a lot to do with that. That game against the Toronto Raptors, I mean, obviously we talked a lot about the shooting in that one, but it was the open looks that got those shots.
I don't see it.
And I think when Jason Tatum's getting his Ben Simmons on, if you will, and that's of course also means him getting to the free throw line. You guys notice that as well when he's passing the ball and that ball's swinging and he's an assist. These guys racking up, 6.
This felt like a Ben Simmons game with a lot of shot attempts. Yeah,
exactly. And it opens up the floor. I mean, it just creates so much more opportunities for the rest of the starting unit. But then in comes the second unit, and of course now Brad you've noticed it's either Jason or Jaylen most of the time to start the second quarter out there with that second unit, and he's getting them going as well. And of course Pritchard is out there anchoring the backcourt.
Oh man.
Good job tonight, Aaron.
Nesmith is pumped.
And actually, this is the thing. Like, I don't think
he shouldn't be too excited, actually.
I don't think any of us jumped off the Nesmith boat. It was deserving of criticism, taking a guy who realistically couldn't get involved or find any trust from his coach early on. But we're still talking about, what's it now, 3 months since he got drafted? Not
COVID.
even.
We're not getting a haircut, okay?
Come on,
Joe Sway was ready to release.
That's what this is. All right.
Joe Sway was ready to release Nesmith, I think, like 2 games ago. I think he actually said he's got nothing left.
You already said you made a mistake. Move on.
You said the Celtics.
Joe Sway said that?
They screwed up.
No, don't believe it. Look at it. Don't.
You absolutely said that.
That he's a bust.
Basically, yes, you said that. Somebody backed me up on it.
He said Sadiq Bey. Yeah, I said compared to Sadiq Bey.
You basically said cut your losses. I think was the exact. I think was the exact phrase.
This is old takes exposed.
The internet
this is like a year. This is like a 36 hours ago.
Friday or something. Yeah.
Show me your receipt. Where's your receipts?
You think we're not going to find this?
We got Celtics on us for that.
Nick is on it right now. Nick, find it.
Rumors already on it.
I didn't watch the whole show. I only saw bits and pieces of it.
With me. He's gonna tamper the audio. He's gonna dub some other stuff over me.
No,
it's true.
Now we're gonna get into some trade conversations here. I don't think any of us would have problem throwing him in a deal if it made sense. But
no, of course not. Of course not.
Yeah.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
He's
played 20 minutes of good basketball.
I mean, someone mentioned Pritchard getting traded. I'm not surprised to hear that.
You'll trade everything and anything for a legit player. Yeah.
This is the
right now.
Game. this is the game. You need like 10 more of these games. These are the games that we've been clamoring for all season, because if you ever want to have a tradable asset, you need to prove that you have a tradable asset. So you play your guys like you did tonight. So that's baby steps, right?
It will change, Jimmy, though. And we even saw Green in this one for stretches too, because he made sense on a matchup basis. I didn't say they found their rotation tonight, Josue. You'll probably see Grant the next 2 games against Atlanta. They're bigger in the front court. So this is going to change. It's always going to continue to change. And that's something people criticize Stevens over. It works occasionally, as it did here, if he hits it right. And other games, he guesses, like Carson Edwards starting against Phoenix, and it's a disaster. So that's part of the inconsistency of Stevens. If you're going to approve of anybody's criticism of him here to start this year, but a lot of positives tonight. I still want to get into the situation as a whole here, though, when it comes to trades and when it comes to Stevens and everything else that you guys talked about over the weekend, because this still is kind of a inconsistent situation. We know they've been capable of this.
I do want to get into the trades, because that's where obviously the show ends up going all the time. I did want to talk about Danny's comments a little bit for those who missed it. It was interesting, the timing of it. We have a rock bottom loss against the Wizards on Sunday. Then Danny Ainge, as we mentioned at the top of the show, goes on literally, I think
it's great to see the relevance of a newspaper drop in 2021.
He sought out the Globe and the Herald and gave them both an interview at the same time. So it means he wants to do this. He wants to go on record and say some things. And this is, I don't know whether Brad was, do you guys really think Brad was under fire, or it's just like idiots like us and like in the chat, like it's talk, but like, there's that one thing that Gary wrote. So Gary Washburn in the Globe, in his column with his interview with Ainge, slips in this little dagger where he says, the Celtics have been tuning Brad out lately. It just kind of sat there. It wasn't really
like a team. They look like a team that's tuned their coach out. That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just kind of sat there a little bit, and then it wasn't really qualified or addressed, or sources tell me, or I've whatever.
It was right at the end of the paragraph too. It was a little spot to put it.
Just sitting there, and it was just. And then the rest of it was about Ainge's interview, and a lot of it was cover for Brad, basically saying it's not on Brad. And this quote was from the Herald one. The Washburn quote was, "It's on the players. It's on the players, and the players on this team are on me." So I'm basically, but both of them are basically saying it's not Brad. I'm taking the heat off Brad. Do you think he felt it necessary to do that because he thought Brad was getting beat up? Do you think he's sensing a vibe that maybe there are some issues there and he wants to stand up and support him? I was trying to figure out the reason behind going out there and publicly. Or the other one is, you can't admonish players nowadays because they're going to get really upset and they all have attitudes and they're stars. So you can't do that. So this is a way to do that by basically taking it onto yourself by saying, I brought in these players. But he did say, if changes need to be made, I'll make them. It's not always the thing, but if it doesn't fix itself, I'll switch the guys out. So what did you guys make of these comments? Again, it was 2 different interviews, 2 different papers.
Yeah, so I guess.
Oh, go ahead, Jimmy.
You go. All right, I'll go. I'm just gonna say, I guess I see it like 2 different ways. One, it's kind of refreshing to see so oftentimes the coach gets blamed first and for everything, and then the coach gets fired, and that's kind of it. And the players kind of get away with playing like shit, and then all of a sudden you bring in a new coach, and now all of a sudden they're trying again, and they're invigorated, and this and that. And it's that's kind of some bullshit. But it was kind of refreshing to see Ainge sort of back the coach, because he truly does believe in Brad. And one of the things I thought was kind of funny and kind of weird, and John, we talked about it briefly today, is that I haven't heard a single player on the Celtics really back Brad anytime recently. And that was interesting, because I even had a tweet today. I was like, I'm interested to see if any players after the game today back Brad or defend Brad or stick up for the coaching staff. Because John, you mentioned it. We used to hear players talking about how much of a genius Brad Stevens was. We used to hear that fairly often, and we don't hear that anymore. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, how do the players feel about Brad? Is there a disconnect between Danny and Brad and the players, or Brad and the players, or is there not? I mean, is everything fine and dandy because all of a sudden they wanted to bring effort tonight? So I thought it was interesting that Danny Ainge made a point to go out there and defend Brad, not defend the players. So that tells me that he's disappointed in the players, not Brad. obviously. But I mean, it's sometimes refreshing. Sometimes a GM will, fire the coach to take the heat off of him because he's the one who brought in the roster and brought in the players.
Well,
But
how many times, Jimmy, in other sports have we seen that where the GM doesn't, where you see a coach twisting in the wind, or there's an incident, with a player and the GM doesn't back him,
right.
And that's bad. But I didn't see anything like that here. Like, there's not a moment where outside of talk, what we say on the show, what you see on Twitter, radio stuff. There's buzz, but only because, like I said, there's always heat on the coach here. But Joe Sway, go ahead. You were jumping in here.
Yeah, no, I think there's some truth to that. I think what a lot of it has to do with is Brad Stevens, from afar to what Jimmy just said. Before, remember those days when it was like, oh, Brad Stevens is one of the best assets the Celtics have because guys want to play for him. Young players want to play for Brad, and there was a lot of that. I don't think that necessarily he's lost this team, but I think maybe that sort of got lost in the message of what Brad is and the identity of this team, and maybe some of that has to do with what happened in the bubble in Orlando and the conflict between the team and the locker room. But heading into the season, though, I think the approach was different because they all knew that they had a lot to prove. And I think Danny Ainge is starting to put more heat on himself because he's thinking, man, I didn't expect this from Tristan Thompson. I expected a little more. Jeff Teague, wow, he got outshined by the guy I picked almost in the second round. Man, I guess I struck gold there. He
mentioned things he could have done as well in the Herald one.
So how are you, if you're him, right? How do you feel when you're hearing the shade go towards Brad Stevens? Like, wait a minute, I'm the one that gave him this. I don't want to say crappy roster, but mediocre or still in flux roster. I set him up for that, and shoot, maybe another head coach, this would be a lot worse. Maybe Brad Stevens needs to take the heat off of him for a little bit because I'm the one that put this roster together, and it's my responsibility to go out and get those big free agents since Gordon Hayward walked out the door. I mean, again, people can put that on Danny too.
This is the tricky thing, too, about the Zoom world we're in media-wise, Jimmy. The topics that come up are the ones that get asked, and there's like 4 or 5 questions in these sessions, and that's it. There's not a whole lot of, conversation going on in the locker room. So something like, I know you got mad about the excuse of the schedule or something like that. Like, that's just a question that gets asked, and then something doesn't get asked about how much they support Stevens, so we don't know. I do know that Brown and Tatum had those 2 dismayed pressers over the weekend where you heard the shades of criticism come out, not direct, but Brown talking about the team needing help in some ways, and Tatum alluding to the young players catching up defensively and that kind of stuff. Like, you saw the sense of what might have given Washburn the idea that there was a fading trust in Stevens here because there was an erosion of trust in some other things, it felt like, from both of them there. How much help do we have? Are the right guys playing at the right times? Could be possibly some you pull from that, but they definitely both felt down. And then when it got to Brown's no comment thing on Sunday about the ball movement, it really felt like they were eating words about what they were frustrated about as the 2 stars of this team. Because let's make no mistake, Tatum and Brown over the last week or so have had to do almost everything up until tonight. And that gets frustrating. And I think they at the very least know that, Stevens just can't magically bring them help. There's layers to this. There's adjustments that need to be made. I think they probably have a pretty good idea that changes are coming. So,
or maybe they want different guys in there too. It could go both ways.
That's what I felt like. Like, and so is Ainge
other guys instead of these guys?
Yeah, but I don't think what Gary said was a stretch, though. I mean, we've seen teams fall apart or teams give up on their head coach.
I just wonder what that's from,
the beginning sign, right? That's the beginning sign. The inconsistency, the lack of effort, getting your butt whipped, going back-to-back nights after you just had your best offensive night of the season. I mean, to Gary, to give some credit to him, that's sort of the pattern you typically see. With a team that's had a head coach for, 7 seasons now?
Well, I left this comment up because I did want to mention it. I was texting it earlier with you guys. The Kyrie thing, when we talk about like what Brad was talked about like before and then after, there was definitely a turning point where he went through a year where the Brad Stevens thing didn't work. And I don't know that it was whether it's his fault.
He's paying for that now.
And I think he's paying for it a tad because that's the problem is it took some of the shine off him a little bit because he had all the answers and he didn't have them that year because it was such a difficult year and a difficult roster. And Kyrie was blowing him up left and right and then be like, what? I didn't do or say anything. It was just a gross year. But also it's just, I remember one time I was at a practice in Waltham. This is the stuff that you see, you don't hear about too much. But I remember early in the season, with Kyrie and the entire team after the media availability, not Waltham, at Arbeck Center.
Yeah, I got you.
The entire team goes into the film room, okay? They just walk in dutifully. They're just done dribbling and the practice is over. And Brad does his availability, and Kyrie just goes over and he goes to do something. And Brad's like, and an assistant comes to him and he's like, where is – I just see Brad go, where is he? And the guy's like, he went in there. He's going to do some treatment and this and that. And Brad's just like, get him in here, just give me a freaking break. The whole team is in there. He just he kind of composed. He's like, get him in there, Kyrie was on his own planet the whole season. But when you see your coach get emasculated like that, it's hard to unsee it, and that did hurt him a little bit, I think, where maybe that's one of the reasons why you're not, oh, Brad. Tatum and Brown had to sit there and watch this guy who they thought was, their savior and the guy who had all the answers absolutely just get dragged by these other guys, and it was ugly.
No, and it doesn't.
Brad now. I thought you were, big coach Brad Stevens. Now I was like, oh, that's just Brad.
Yeah, it's just Brad. Right. It's just you can't do that. And it's hard. Right. Once that happens to anybody, you get your legs chopped off. It's hard. Yeah.
And few of the guys on the roster this year, fortunately, were there for that. There was a cleaning of house. They fixed the chemistry, all that stuff they did in 19. So when it comes to who trusts Stevens, it comes down to, does Tatum trust him? Does Brown and Walker?
Smart.
I think Walker and Smart too. We know Smart trusts them. There's no doubt Smart's bought into the system. He's been here since day one. Kemba, I get the feeling that Kemba loves this guy, but do Brown and Tatum, would they be dismayed if they moved on to him? To Jimmy's point, I don't know. I haven't heard anything from either of them that makes it feel like Jimmy said, that they love him, that if he moved on, they'd be absolutely in tears and out of their mind. I think Tatum and Brown have the feeling, whether it be from 19, 20, the run they had in 18, that they can get it done, they can handle it, and if there's a different voice at the top, it wouldn't matter all that much to them. Now, thank the Lord, Ainge has the bigger vision here and the trust in Stevens to know that it's not necessarily better on the other side. Because is Stevens doing everything he needs to build up this team and coach up the younger players? Maybe not. But could someone else be doing a much worse job with this pretty bad plate they've been handled? Absolutely. And you see it around the league every single year, the disastrous job that some coaches do. It's true in the NBA. The coaches don't always lift you up, but they can drive you into the ground.
Well, it comes down to this. Brad Stevens, if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are on board with Brad Stevens, then Brad Stevens is fine. That's really all that matters. Nothing else matters. What we say,
the NBA.
What the fans say, what the chat says, what the media says, doesn't matter. If Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are true believers in Brad and they're all in this together, then that's all that matters. Because what we saw in Philly with Brett Brown was that we saw a team that totally tuned out Brett Brown, Simmons, Embiid, those guys. By the end of it, you guys saw how it ended there last season. Brett Brown's a great guy, extremely smart basketball mind, came from the Spurs organization, and he was with that team for a long time, or with the Sixers for a good amount of years. And by the end of it, it just didn't work out. The players didn't have his back anymore. If that's not the case in Boston, then we're good. We're good to go. If not, then we have a problem.
But that's the whole ballgame. If they listen, that's it. That's where I guess the thing gets confused, Bobby. And again, we were talking about this earlier. It doesn't matter how good a coach Brad Stevens is. If you lost the players, you lost the players. He has not lost the players.
But what's losing the players?
If you do, you're done. Doesn't matter how good you are. People do get tuned out. It's not the case here. I don't think it's at all the case.
Right. not the case.
That's the syntax we have to get into too, though. Like, what does losing the players mean? Do you have a bad week and they kind of tune them out, and if things start rolling again, they pick like
If the leaders start to
you know it.
You want to
You
go
know it
in.
when it happens. You know it when it happens.
If the leaders start to freestyle, Bobby, and you have one-on, one-off efforts, and that trickles down to the rest of the team, that's the problem. So you can't have. That's why. Look, Tatum has a COVID issue, and everybody's entitled to bad games. But if Tatum was one-on, one-off with an effort sort of thing, and Jaylen, same thing, starts to get sloppy. The defense is sloppy. There's just games where they blow fourth quarter leads, and and you have effort issues. Then you start to worry that they're not playing for him anymore.
that happened in 2019 though, and he didn't lose his job.
A ton.
He didn't lose his job.
Well,
Like,
but that's where the Heat got turned up a little. You think
because
the Heat got turned up on Brad in the playoffs? You're supposed to have the more talented team there, and everybody was like, and they how many fourth quarter meltdowns? Josue, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just throwing in my 2 cents. I was like, yeah, but I wasn't quite. Yeah, there was that going on between the team. He lost that team, but also I feel like the personalities they were clashing a bit here and there. Again, that's that's what happens when the team is disconnected from the head coach. They start to turn on each other a little bit. I mean, what was it? Marcus Morris shoving Jaylen Brown in that timeout in Miami. Kyrie Irving yells at Gordon Hayward in front of everyone because he didn't get the ball where he wanted in Orlando. In Brooklyn, he got pretty much benched for that. Where it wasn't official though. The Celtics didn't spank him in public and say, "Hey, this guy's suspended for a game." And I don't think that helped because that didn't bode well with the rest of the team. So there's a lot of things going on that year. Yeah, I mean, Brad lost his team, but I think they lost each other in a sense as well.
There's a lot of things going on this year too, though. You come into the year missing a fifth starter because Ainge didn't want to acquire a player during the offseason.
Yeah, but I don't think you have a personality. That's the difference, though.
Yeah, there's just a lot. They had the COVID layoff. You had to pretty much start a second team from scratch once Kemba came back, and you had to integrate him in. And he started 8-3. So there were
keep going back to that.
There were
8-3
successes.
is an extremely small sample size of games.
But after that, Kemba comes in. Kemba certainly hurt them in some games as he got reintegrated. They dropped a bunch of those. But make no mistake, the last week was a disaster. Like, absolute. The Heat should have been on everybody after the weekend. But it's everybody. It's not just Brad. And I know Brad's always going to be, and the coach in the NBA is always going to be the first person you look to. But if you think of all the context involved here, firing Brad before fixing the team would have been absolutely insane to me. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You have
Nobody
to.
was going to fire. Nobody was going to fire Brad. Nobody was going to fire Brad. But Bobby, when you
he's freaking out. I don't think that's what he meant. He's just throwing it out there, and he's right. That would have been crazy.
But this is a problem.
Yeah,
people can't criticize in this town. You can't criticize the coach without being an advocate of firing him. That's not what people are saying when they say Brad deserves some heat.
People were saying fire Brad over the weekend.
Some people are saying it, but again, we're not talking about Twitter or kind of like a chat room. You're talking about, like, are there really calls to fire Brad? Is it okay for people to actually criticize or wonder aloud whether he's doing everything at the highest level or if there's some things he can do better? I mean, it's insane to think that he's infallible and untouchable. That's where the conversation gets all goofy. It's just because you put a little criticism on Brad's plate doesn't mean you're advocating getting rid of him and bringing in somebody else to fix the team.
Yeah, but it sounds like you want to give him you want to write him up, right? I think that's why the big Brad Stevens fans are like, wait,
there are things you can say.
Right about our guy a warning. That's Brad Stevens. Damn it, give the guy a chance. That's what they think of. They think of when you bring that up once or twice. Okay, that's the second write up. That's the third write up. The third time you bring it up, it's like, okay, now you want to fire the guy. So yeah, I mean the diehard Brad Stevens fans they don't want to hear that right now.
But here's the thing. Brad gets the least amount of heat probably of every coach or every manager in this area. I mean, I heard more calls to fire Bill Belichick because of this season than I've ever heard of Brad Stevens. And I mean, you want to talk about crazy? I mean, that's crazy. So there's people giving Belichick heat because the Patriots missed one freaking season of the playoffs in the last 10 years and 2 in the last 20. So, I mean, really, that's kind of what Boston's kind of all about. I mean, it's not really anything against Brad, but Celtics fans are, I think, the easiest of the bunch when it comes to, being critical of, their players or coaches. So, again, and no one's saying fire Brad. You're right, Bobby. That would be absolutely crazy. But when you have games like you had on Sunday, you have to start wondering, is there a bigger issue here, or is one developing? And when you want to talk about, how do you know when a coach loses the team? It's games like Sunday, and then if they followed it up with another shitty one tonight, and then another one, that's when you know. Well, no one's saying that he's lost the locker room, but that game right there was a sign that there's something might not be right, or all the time right now.
Who's it gonna be, John or Nick? That's the battle in the comments.
Let's have tryouts. Let's do that.
There's only room for 140 plus in here. It's gonna be one or the other. It can't be me or Nick. It can't be Jimmy or Nick. It's gotta be John or Nick.
No, Nick is good in that featuring role. It's like featuring Nick. It's like, oh, okay,
Nick comes in
every once in a while.
Give Nick credit. He was critical of Brad a couple weeks ago, and before it was cool to be on Sunday.
Yeah, I live at home. I'm 22. If John wants to ramp up, I'll move out. The Garden Report salary here, I'll move out.
I love that. Random
John,
user.
wow, that's not nice. John, you didn't have to post that.
I'm posting the funny ones.
John roasting himself right now.
Let's be realistic too, and I know none of you guys advocate for it.
I'm roasting myself. I'm looking for him.
You guys inch close.
He's like, yes, I'm trash. Yes.
People want to talk trades.
You can say everything short of fire Brad here, and I know none of you guys actually believe you want to fire Brad, but for the people that do, just know that during this COVID year, you're probably moving on. You're probably moving on to like Larinaga for the rest of the year and then figuring out something after. There's not going to be a new real coach during this year. So that's another thing, like trading Kemba, that would just be giving up on this year. And are you guys giving up on this year yet?
No.
There we go.
Like I said, as long as you have Jaylen and Jason.
I'm not saying you guys are. I'm just testing.
As long as you have Jaylen and Jason and players who are still going to get healthy and the TPE.
This is salvageable.
There are possibilities. There's no runaway team right now. I don't care. And as well as Brooklyn is playing when they're at their best, I'm still seeing injuries and breakdowns and stuff like that going there, and that train sputtering into the station. That's my belief there on that team. So I'm not super worried yet. But
don't you feel like the Celtics could really get under their skin too? I don't know, something about it. I don't know.
You want to see them play that way. I haven't seen it yet.
Team I'm
Not
looking
right
for
now.
that nasty
Not right
like chippiness.
You'd like to see it.
Those couple of wing players that I'm hoping that Danny Ainge is going to bring in here. Give me a wing player. Give me a wing defender and a shooter.
I thought it could have been Thompson. Not quite.
You want to do? Yeah, we're
gonna. Yeah. Well, I mean, so we have the one, which this is the one that's going to make Bobby's head explode.
What year is this rumor from?
Right.
This is today from Sam Amik
a long time ago.
You could
It's
do a
from
Google
2015,
search,
16, 17, 18, 19,
ones from all different 6 different years. Drummond to the
Oh
Celtics.
my Lord.
Well, hey, I mean, at some point every year he becomes more and more available and attainable. So maybe at some point it will actually happen.
I think it's going to happen when he's like.
I'm not interested.
So yeah, let's start with the first part. He'd be extremely hard to trade for. He's bigger than the no, he's within the TP, but he's the whole thing. And then you have to cut off all the hard cap stuff we talked about. So you're dumping multiple players to acquire him, and he's expiring, so he can leave at the end of the year. And he's going to get paid again, not as much as he was, but you'd have to pay him at the end of the year. And do you want to pay Andre Drummond again with what he is at this point?
Andre Drummond is a buyout candidate.
This is Sam Amik of the Athletic.
Yeah.
This is like when the Celtics got what's his name?
Greg Monroe.
Yes.
It'd be Greg Monroe.
That was a disaster.
It'd be a better version of Greg Monroe, but
that's all Greg Monroe. When I see Drummond, I know they're not the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of it though.
For his entire Celtics tenure, I don't think he woke up one day of his entire tenure with Celtics.
Monroe,
Georgetown bust. Yeah,
Monroe got cut and then got re-signed, and I didn't even notice. Last year.
I
was like, oh,
I can't stand those Georgetown players anymore. Ever since like Iverson, I don't think they've come out with a good player since.
Since Iverson, Jesus.
True,
seriously.
Otto Porter.
I hope my guy Phil Perry's not watching because he's a Georgetown guy, but it's the truth.
What about Thabit, man?
Hasheem Thabit. Wasn't he UConn?
UConn?
Yeah.
Oh, he was UConn. You're right. He was UConn.
He's UConn.
Well, I said that with
Otto-
vigor too.
I'm thinking Otto Porter, Jeff
Yeah, but,
Green.
like,
Yeah.
Otto Porter, yeah.
But these guys, to me, soft busts, like never really
Not like
amounted to-
Syracuse.
not
Jeremy
like
Grant,
Syracuse.
baby.
You get that right. You get that.
Scouts been pumping the Jeremy
Or
Grant.
Melo the other night, Bobby. Syracuse still going in.
Michael
That's
Sweetney, how about that?
Oh, sweet.
Is it Michael
That
Sweeney?
was
Jeez.
sweet.
Celtics had him.
Yeah, that was an unreal like little stint he had. It's hilarious.
That era is long
Another
gone.
Georgetown guy.
He's
Yeah.
good.
The Celtics
Yeah.
like the
We had
Syracuse
Ewing,
guys for a
Alonzo,
while.
and then a whole lot of forgettable.
That's what I'm saying. Like it has not been anybody since those days.
On Drummond, though, I mean, I don't. Why would they have strong interest in him? I don't understand that. It'd be
It would
hard
have to be a buyout.
Because your boy
A buyout.
Thompson, they wanted him to be, man.
Yeah, is that the thinking there? You could trade Thompson there and bring him back. Like it'd probably be. I don't even know if it'd be better. Like again, Thompson was okay today. He fouled a lot, but he grabbed boards and he did his thing. Like Drummond's like Dwight Howard. Like he'll grab the ball and try to do a lot of stuff, and it'll drive you nuts. Like he's gonna like ISO up from the top of the 3-point line and take over the offense, and he's horrible.
Like
And
I
he
said,
doesn't hit free
I'm all
throws, and
set there.
he's not
No.
that good of a defender either.
All right.
Plus, Robert Williams gonna be pissed. So
But he'll grab
Yeah,
the shit out of. He will grab
after all we
rebounds and-
Bobby's like, yeah.
After all we talked about Rob, like, is anyone going to co-sign another guy in front of him that doesn't really deserve it? No way.
Are you kidding me? Really, guys? Another big. Okay.
No, I am interested in
Well, this
upgrading
guy
the
we
front
like.
court. Yeah. I got really sold on this one, but you're just talking to a ton of people around the league because of the fact that he would be a
he's
free
good.
agent
Because he's
signing.
objectively really good at basketball,
Yeah.
and it would have been
Wait,
silly to
what
not want him
sold you?
before.
Well, that
What told
too.
you?
No, I think the fact that you can
League
use
source.
this.
He's
Vucevic is good.
No, you can use this. What I just said about Drummond. Now, the difference is here. I like Vucevic and I don't like Drummond.
Sort.
But there's also the contract. 3
A little
years.
birdie told me this guy's good.
3 years versus 1 year. And actually, like, they wanted this guy last time, didn't they? And then the Magic just paid him more. So this is a chance to sign Vucevic effectively as a free agent, make him your fourth max guy, as they want to do with Hayward, and have that be your core into the future. I think he's the only guy on the market right now that makes sense from that standpoint and is acquirable because the Magic just lost Cole Anthony now on top of all their other
They are a
injuries.
mess, huh?
Yeah, they have nothing left.
That team.
Now, what's it going to cost?
So that's what I think. So this is what's interesting. We could debate this all live long day. My favorite thing about playing these trade games is if we had the same amount of people in this chat from Orlando as we did Boston, no matter what we said, both teams would be furious about it. One would think it's not enough and the other think it's too much.
Marcus Smart's the name I heard.
It's always more than you need. You might have to do Smart. You might have to do – I don't know that you do it for the team.
Vucevic?
Well, I would think this, what I was saying before, TPE plus, take your pick of 2 out of the 3 kids, 4 or 3 out of the 4. It would be Pritchard, Rob, Romeo, Neesmith, all on the table. You probably
Huh?
You probably deal. I'm not saying I would do it. I'm saying it probably requires that. You're probably looking at 2 of those. So I could see Robert and whichever of the other 3 Orlando would want. And then you're looking at a pick or 2.
So let me pretend
that's
to
quite
be.
a
More
lot.
than a pick.
Right? Do you think
I'm thinking 3 picks.
I was thinking Rob, 2 picks. Rob, your player of your choice, TPE, and 2 picks.
Yeah. Because they're going to get a big.
I'm
They're
just,
getting a big.
I'm guessing
they're
there. Yeah.
This could be another situation where you have to pull in the third team to outlet Thompson. I don't know if that would be the Thunder, the Pelicans, or something. One of those teams that has been just racking up picks and will take on anybody. Could Thompson team up with Al Horford there in Oklahoma City and use Oklahoma, who has a ton of picks, to funnel some of those over toward Orlando or New Orleans or something to that effect. I don't know. It's going to be tricky here, but if I'm going to play the Orlando guy and I'm asking for Marcus Smart, less picks, obviously, maybe just 1 first-round pick in that case, and then we'll eat Thompson, allow you to keep Rob, and we'll take on Tice, I guess. So you're left with Vucevic, Rob, and more of your first long term, but you have to give up Marcus Smart. And remember, if you bring on Vucevic, you're probably going to lose Smart when he hits free agency in the future. So that's another consideration here.
I'll tell you what. What besides what Bobby just told us?
I still think they want a big, Bob. I mean, they like Marcus Smart, but you want a big if you're giving up Vucevic.
Besides what we know now that Vucevic is good based on what Bobby's hearing. What else do you know about this guy?
But they have Isaac also, Josue. He's been hurt all year.
He has been hurt.
What I'm saying
He's hurt a lot.
Can you when you talk about listen, I'm not gonna sit here and say Marcus Smart is like the end all be all, but when you talk about trading Marcus Smart, you better make sure you're damn confident in the leaders and like the
that's the thing.
Sort of vibe on your team. But you bring in a guy like Vucevic. Do we know anything about him? Is he an energy guy? Is he is he a team?
He's just really good
about the guy because he's playing in Orlando, and I don't even know if I've ever heard him speak before. To be completely honest, just because he's in a market that's on a team that hasn't been good in a while, and he's not a point guard, so he's not like filling up the highlight reels. And
again, guys, that was Orlando's ask. I'm playing the Orlando GM there.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, I understand that he would feel a massive need for them, but you got to be careful about what happens to the DNA of your team. You want to make sure that you don't have a situation like the Celtics did when they traded Perkins for Jeff Green, and everyone thought that was going to be a great trade, but it kind of tore the team apart in a way.
Yeah. So I'm not giving up Smart. Even though I think there's a decent case there where if you're going to bring on a max guy, like if we're going to get to Collins after this ahead in that Hawks series, you're going to lose Marcus Smart if you pay John Collins. So whatever the Celtics add, unless they're just patching this up with a Band-Aid with a guy like Harrison Barnes or, someone medium salaried, if you're going big here, full TP on a guy like Vucevic, you're probably losing Smart when he becomes a free agent. So would you give him up proactively, or would you just play out those 2 years with him and just give them everything else? Neesmith, Langford, 3 or 4 first-round picks. Try to funnel in some stuff from a third team, which I think it would require at that point. It'd be really hard to get that deal done, especially if someone else wants Vucevic. But the advantage the Celtics still have is they can eat all that salary without having to match. So it's just, where do you give stuff up to make the pieces work to make Orlando happy there? What I like about him, Jimmy, and I don't know much about him as a individual, Keith Smith would actually know more about that, who covers him down there in Orlando. I know that he kills the Bucks, which is an advantage. He's a really bad matchup for the Bucks. He'd be a monster against the Nets. The Nets don't have any size inside defensively. He shoots the 3 on incredible level, so he'd fit in the system. I just wonder about the defense. And then obviously he's a 7-footer to stand against Embiid. I don't know how good of a defender he is. I think he's just okay. He's a weapon for sure. And I think he makes sense. He's 30. He's probably the best player overall, regardless of position you could get for this, unless you kick the can down the road to get in on the Beal conversation, but that's risky. And even if you have Vucevic here, I think you would rather have something instead of a TPE that you can trade later. So you use that this year, no doubt about it.
Well, we got the Hawks coming. We got the Hawks coming up here. The other one you keep hearing is John Collins. I know that one, people love that for his athleticism, but I do think you have a problem there because you got to pay this guy.
Yeah, he's looking for a big payday. So
or use him as a rental.
Yeah.
So Josue, would you do it?
I wouldn't, because you risk him leaving. I mean, what if he's not crazy about Boston? What if it doesn't work out? Yeah. And you only have a few months to try this thing out. We don't necessarily know what he does on the court is going to translate into him wanting to be with the Celtics for the long run, for long term. And if you're giving it up, what you have left to go and grab someone like Collins just to see him leave, then that's a bad thing. That's you failed. So I don't know if he's worth the risk.
Yeah, you'd be giving up all your assets effectively.
He's looking to get paid. He's young.
Yeah, it'd be a guy that you'd sign and lose Smart later. And he's not good at defense is the other thing. Like this, we've said this before. The Celtics, their offense is good. Maybe they need other ways to score like a Vucevic, but defense is what they need, certainly. And size, too. He's a smaller center. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. And there'll be a lot more competition for this guy. Houston wants him bad. A team like Brooklyn is going to pursue him hard, I'd imagine. Like, there's just teams all over the league that would want this guy. Vucevic's more narrow because he's got a big deal.
Collins is restricted, like you said. He probably wants that Jaylen deal, and that's what it's going to take. I mean, he's saying near max. I mean, he wants not Tatum. Tatum was
No,
even
he would
been
make
there.
Brown money. He'd make the same money as
He'd
Brown.
make Brown money, and that's a lot.
How is he playing this year?
He's a monster on offense.
Yes. Sorry.
There's a lot to like about him too.
I was thinking of Roy Hibbert. I said to beat.
Hibbert.
Oh, Hibbert.
Was Hibbert
Good
George?
call.
Hibbert.
Yeah.
Oh, remember when he first
7'2", he couldn't move at all.
Crazy. People were crazy about Hibbert. People wanted to see him. Well, some people wanted to see him in the Celtics uniform.
Was he an all-star?
He was. Maybe
He ended
once
up
or
being pretty soft though. Hibbert.
True.
He and George had some beef.
They're all the same. They're all same style. Like just kind
That's
of.
why they were. That's why he were. Yeah.
Georgetown's awful now too. The players aren't even playing good in college.
Yeah, I mean, Collins is 18 points a game this year. 7 boards. He is what he is. I mean, this is.
Yeah.
I think when we're talking about trades like this,
He scored more last year. Yeah, scored more last 2 years.
Seeing the Celtics give up someone like Marcus Smart, you got to answer the simple question: Is this trade going to put them to the top? Is it going to put them in the NBA Finals?
41% from 3.
And if it's not, then it's probably not.
He could be that guy. I'm not stubbing my nose at this one because he's awesome, and if he stays around long term, he could get better. He could fit better here, certainly. But again, it's a guy that you're probably pushing Smart out for. Like, you probably would trade Smart in that deal because this guy would absolutely push him out down the line. So,
well, Josue, let me ask you this, because you're not all in on Collins. It's less about Collins and it's more about, it's the same thing as the Hayward conversation in my mind. It's not whether you think Collins is worth it or Hayward was worth it. It's what else can you do there that might be like, do you have another opportunity to get a player close to that caliber?
Yeah, let's say Vucevic's off the table and now it's Collins or something smaller.
Or what though? That's the thing, is like, if you use the TPE
buyout.
If you use the TPE though, you probably want to do it to fold into a player that can stay with you for a longer run, so you actually get value of it, because once it's gone, it's gone. It's the same thing with Hayward. You lose the money, and you can't fill it anymore. So it's less about whether Collins is the perfect answer. It's, can I go forward with these 3 guys if I fill in other places? The problem is, if you trade picks and anybody young on your roster now, it's really hard to replenish at that point. So that's
just Atlanta really like Smart. Like that makes sense for them too.
And that's why I feel like it should be someone that you absolutely know is worth it. And also, let's not forget, Marcus Smart has a few years left on that deal. If that's your biggest asset to throw into a trade, or if that's your biggest, to match contracts, your biggest, most attractable piece or player, then I don't know if Collins is that guy you want to use that chip on quite yet, or this year. I don't know. I just think
risky.
I don't know if he's going to bring in someone like Collins. I think maybe it's 2 second-tier players or one guy that can come off the bench and be productive on both ends of the floor. I think that's what Danny is searching for. But of course, he's going to check out all his options.
We've had this.
Go
ahead.
Real quick. We're also insinuating that they're going to use this TPE during the season. They don't have to, right?
You can use it after the season.
Use it after the season. So if they don't think that there's anybody that can get them over the hump, why would they use it for this season? Why wouldn't they wait and see how things shake out over the offseason?
Because this team's going to lose bad in the playoffs if they
they probably will lose with whoever they get with the TPE.
That's my point. Yeah.
I don't want to go into an offseason with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown really bummed out state of this team.
You got to save this team.
John. They'll be all right. They're kids.
This is what I didn't like about Ainge's
Jason
comments.
Tatum's contract hasn't even started since he.
Yeah, when he gets that first check, he's gonna be like, "Oh man, I'm good. Don't worry about it."
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, like superstars can never force a trade with years left on their contract.
No, they're a few years away from that. But again, you don't want to plant the seeds of frustration there.
I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm saying you got to keep these guys happy.
We've watched this team, Jimmy. Like, they can make a small move. Like, I heard KOC talk about Thad Young, and maybe he'd fit good, and maybe he'd help them out a little bit.
Man, I don't know.
Yeah, he'd fill a spot in the starting lineup.
We keep saying they need a wing. They need to back up this. They need to,
I love Thad Young, but
how is that not Thad Young?
He's good. He's a good player. I don't know if he changes all that much. Like again, if it
But
gets
he's not
down to
gonna
that point and
cost a
he's the
lot.
option, then yeah, certainly. And I'm not gonna like trade everything for Collins or Vucevic. So at some point there is a price there that you stop at. But this team needs a lot of help, and it's either multiple moves, a buyout guy, a smaller trade like a Tucker or something like that, and a medium-sized deal like a Young, or a big one, and you can fold up that big one in the salary for a later deal. You can't do nothing with this roster because right now this roster is not good enough. It's missing a starter. It has no depth.
Thad Young doesn't shoot, guys. I mean, you really want Thad Young?
He's old and past his good days.
No, he doesn't shoot. He's not a shooter. Do you really want to bring a guy like that?
You really want to bring a shooter in so then we can complain that he's taking shots from Tatum and Brown and Kemba?
No, I want shooters to take shots.
No, he wants Terrence
Ross.
I
want Grant Williams to take shots.
Thad Young's shooting numbers are bad this year. He is a decent shooter.
He's not. He's never been a 3-point shooter. I just don't think he wants
to. But he does everything else. He can defend.
He slashes. He defends. Yeah, he's a real 4, which this team needs. And he'd be cheap, as Jimmy said. But it just patches something up. You run into the Bucks round 2. He's probably not shifting that series. The Nets.
Right. He doesn't make you better than the teams that are currently better than you.
Doesn't change it. Right. That he's not putting you over the top in anything.
But
it's
does?
sparing you a few.
Probably...
It's sparing you some Grant Williams minutes.
Vucevic's a 4th All-Star for this team, or 3rd, since Kemba isn't one anymore. So that's a real deal.
That's a difference maker.
Yeah.
He's somebody that could say, okay, now we are a legitimate title contender. But right now, when you look at the Eastern Conference alone, Philly, Brooklyn, the Bucks. I mean, hell, my team Indy from the preseason is looking pretty good. Charlotte's playing well. I mean, you got a lot of teams here. So if you're Danny Ainge, you're not trying to just do a panic move that's going to make you a second-round exit. And then you've lost assets. You already have barely any assets to begin with. So you have to be very careful with how you utilize them this season.
But let's think, too, like the assets you have in place. If you don't make the most of them early, maybe package more of them together. Picks, especially the Celtics have a draft pick next year. You're going to be sitting there on draft night again with your pick, with Tice walking out the door, with assets spilling out again. Yep. So do you make the most of them now, or just trade a few of them and make some minor moves that really aren't going to mean all that much? Again, this is the year to push it on the table. I think
You're gutting you're not gutting. You're removing any current assets and all future assets for a high-level player in the Vucevic category, or you're making a very small move. Those are the two options. But you're going to have to get rid of everything, and that's probably multiple future picks and a couple of players who you might kind of like and want to see how they develop here in order to get that type of player. So that's what you're talking about doing.
And then if you kick that TPE too far, that could just disappear.
Right. Like Josue, just poof.
I mean,
two names real quick I want to cross off the list here because we see him a ton. Jeremy Grant is not coming here, okay? It's not going to happen. He's playing when a player is really good, teams want to trade him less, okay? They just signed him. They're not going to trade him, okay?
He really wants to be there.
What about his teammates?
He made it clear he really wants to be there.
He made it clear he wants to be there. They're not trading him right after dumping all this money on him and him playing, having an absolute career. Julius Randle is also not going to be traded here, okay? He's way outplayed the level of value that you could get him anymore. He's a chip now. He's an actual building block for that team. Awesome. He's not being traded. So you got to get rid of those two guys.
But how about the other rumor, Blake Griffin?
Well,
you mentioned him.
I could talk myself into Blake on a buyout, and not because he'd be a massive difference maker. I have no illusions he's even close to what he was before. Right. But I absolutely could.
To come in.
I could live with him.
I think he would be eager to come in.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously
he's a pro.
The two stars, he's a pro. He's always, ever since he was just taken back. He was shocked. Remember that trade from the Clippers, and he hasn't been able to compete at that level. It's going to be a great opportunity for him to be on that grand stage and provide a role for that team.
Josue, I think also if you think of him no longer as Blake Griffin and just a guy who does what this version of Blake Griffin currently does. Everyone who says he's washed and he doesn't do anything, yes, relative to the guy who was one of the most.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off real quick. It just drove me crazy when Scal couldn't stop talking about how he doesn't dunk anymore. It's like he doesn't do that anymore. He had to transform his game. He's trying to prolong his career. I think that it's noble of him. He's doing like a little like a Tiger Woods thing, trying to change his approach to prolong his career, knowing it's best in the long run. He's got to get those outside shots.
And I know this graphic says TPE. For me, only a buyout situation. If
he's
was
bigger
there,
than the TPE,
huh?
He's bigger than the TPE.
But you're not doing that. You'd never do TPE for that. Right now he's being benched so they can figure out, can they buy him out and let him go where he wants to go and end this.
He's really bad. If people haven't been paying attention, he's been awful the last 2 seasons. So maybe a different situation like gets him to play a little better, but beyond some bench help, like he's not bringing much to the table.
Bench help.
I also don't know how the Pistons are going to buy him out unless if he really wants to pass up on tens of millions of dollars. That's a way he could get out of there, but otherwise the Pistons are going to have to do some stuff like a Bobby Bonilla style stretch here.
He's in rough shape because he never had an outside game, and you're right, Bobby, and his inability to use his athleticism to get to the rim anymore.
He's on one leg. Has
rendered him almost useless offensively. I mean, he'd really be a role player. Really,
we watched him on Friday. I mean, he just had no impact on that game.
Yeah.
So that's not doing anything for them. Now, Joe Sway, I agree with you. If he really wants to come here and be a guy, they need that. Like they need Blake Griffin, the figure, the veteran, the guy who's been through it all on that bench. So even if he's not playing that much, he understands what he is at this point. So if the Celtics are what he gets pumped about, I think it's more likely the Heat though.
I'm looking at it the way Miami did last season, though. I think it's more if you can
like
get a couple of pieces here. Yeah, an Iguodala and a shooter. That would be great for the Celtics, especially a veteran. That sort of voice in the locker room to help push
I agree with that
team the rest of the way. I like what Miami did. Obviously, that made a huge difference. I don't think they make it to the NBA Finals without those adjustments midseason.
Blake Griffin would help this team more than Jeff Teague. I'll say that.
Oh man,
can we leave Jeff Teague alone?
I know. I'm saying that'd be the guy.
Significant. Jeff Teague has the least to do with what's gone on with the Celtics this year.
No, but isn't that what you would do? You would cut Teague and sign Griffin.
That would be the move, they didn't sign Teague, guys, they would have signed another bum. Like it wasn't. He's not eating a valuable roster spot here. They took a flyer on a guy to see if he had anything left in the tank, and he doesn't. He's so insignificant. I don't want to talk about Teague again.
You guys loved it. We never got the apology cam.
We rolled the dice. He's so insignificant.
Yeah, Bobby.
Oh my God! Opening night it was
wasn't heavier than the Thompson signing. Okay, the Thompson signing was way heavier. Right? They were counting on that. That was a big deal.
Right,
I know.
On him
I know there's gonna be some clips pulled on Joe Sway after tonight. I'm pulling the clip of Jimmy and John waving the Jeff Teague flag after opening night when he scored 19 points.
That was only because we were trolling you. That was because we were trolling.
We were trolling you, but also he came in to just like kind of spell some minutes for an injured Kemba Walker. Kemba's back like a month and a half sooner than we all thought he would be, so he really isn't that important. That said, I'm expecting 20-plus point performance against his former team, the Hawks. One of these 3 games coming up. So do not sleep on Teague just yet.
We do that a lot. We ignore the top of the roster and we talk about the bottom. Jaylen Brown.
Why do you want to
ignore Jaylen Brown completely? That's what we do. Okay, we don't ignore Tatum. We don't ignore Kemba.
Ready?
We ignore Brown all the effing time.
Okay, true. Watch this. Ready? Let's have a compelling conversation about Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's been really good. Okay, go.
I'm not complaining. It's a good thing, but I don't know. Sometimes we have to really give him his props when he goes off. Some of these games, he's talking about.
Should he be starting in the All-Star game?
We spent a lot of time on Jaylen. I feel we did.
No, there's too much else to talk about.
It's a good point. Yeah, we don't talk about him enough.
We expect it. I mean, Tatum got to that place too. When he first became a superstar in the playoffs, we had a million Tatum segments. But once it becomes expected, it's not like a pat on the back every good night. But again, awesome tonight. They don't win the game without this performance. He went toe-to-toe with Jokic down the stretch. There you go.
It's true. Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's see if Jimmy pops in for final thoughts, and then we'll go. We've got Hawks and Hawks coming up, right? Jimmy, you gonna do this one? Jimmy, you gonna do this one with us?
I hope so. I couldn't hear Joe Sway.
All right, we're being admonished for not talking about Jaylen Brown so much. So we've all, while you were gone, we've all determined that Jaylen Brown is very good.
Cosign, yeah, I think.
Okay, cool. That's our Jaylen segment. Put it, bag it and tag it, Bobby.
I was trying to push me off and think that he couldn't hear me, but he didn't pick up on
Oh
it.
no, I couldn't do. I was dude. I was
Jaylen better.
I was gonna run with that because I couldn't just bail out of this show again for like the fourth time, but I was like, I just can't hear Joe Sway.
Let's do Jaylen versus Jason every night.
We did it. Everyone's like, "Why are you comparing the two?" We're like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah,
try to talk about him.
Well, it's like again, what else can we say about Jaylen Brown? I mean, we've already said he's an all-star. He's one of the he's a possibly most improved player in the NBA. I mean, like,
he deserves to start in the All-Star.
We're sorry, we're not talking more about Jaylen Brown. Okay. There you go. We're sorry.
You.
Hey,
Let me do this quick, guys. Marigold Medical. Let's do this real quick before we go. Marigold Medical, stem cell therapy for all sorts of ailments here. You go and to marigoldmedical.com or call 978-537-0555. Set up a free consult. Tell them Cedric Maxwell sent you. The reason we're going to say that is because Cedric Maxwell did in fact go here for knee issues, got tremendous treatment. It's life-changing for him. This is the goal of this place is to fix you, not to just give you quick fixes, and to really study and diagnose what's wrong and address the issues that you're having long-term. So tell them Cedric Maxwell sent you. marigoldmedical.com or call 978-537-0555. Set up a free consult. Guys, let's put a bow on it. We got the Hawks coming up twice. Again, this is kind of that easy pad portion of the schedule. Bobby Manning will be covering the game for us from the Garden on Wednesday.
Yes,
I think he's there. Is he frozen? Is he frozen?
I'm here.
He's there. Bobby will be there tomorrow night, so he's going to be the one. Bobby's going to have the face mask and the black back. Bobby, bring a light. And let's see the court.
That was my challenge.
Bring a folding stool.
Oh,
I'm going to do the forearm.
All right, leave it exactly the way
the forearm challenge.
Don't touch it. Don't touch anything.
The forearm challenge?
Yeah.
That's my challenge to Bobby is make it seem like you're not in a cave somewhere. Like in
you can't improvise
the cave vibe.
Somewhere with that laptop on.
What's that?
Don't change the cave vibes and turn the camera around so we can see it, just like
That's
I do. Right?
Yeah. So Bobby will be there. We got the Hawks coming up. Tonight's win cools things down a little bit, for sure. And we'll see what happens here heading into next game. But again, I am super hoping that what we saw tonight is more of a. We've seen this a few times. You see something happen, and you're like, "Oh, is Brad doing this now?" And then he kind of goes back to it. I love seeing it. I'm curious again what happens with Rob if Tice is back. If he's not back, you do expect to see another 20-something minute game from Rob. I want to see if we see Nesmith coming off the bench early again. We'll see about that. You are going to have and it's not a back-to-back, right? No, it's
Wednesday, Friday.
But you're not going to
will sit
tomorrow, so you're going to free up some minutes.
Yeah. Jeff Teague's back. Jeff Teague will be back, baby. Do you start to give some of those minutes to Tremont Waters, maybe? I'd start to think about that. Now, overall, it's probably going to be – I mean, what have they been doing in that situation? Like Brown, Tatum, bigger lineup there. Grant will probably get more involved again against a bigger team. It is too bad. You wish Kemba could have had a full shot at Trae Young and that awful Hawks defense again, though. This team's lost 7 of 8. I don't think they'll ever be a good defensive team. They get hyped up every year, and here they are again, a pretty bad team. So they're going to be hard to defend. That's absolutely certain. But the Celtics will be able to light them up in turn. Now, Clint Capella has been awesome for them in recent games, though. So the interior could have some issues there. Diving to the rim, he does all those things. And how are you going to wrap up Trae Young? It's a hard defensive assignment for whoever's going to get it. But overall, this team should be one you can sweep with how bad they are in defense.
No,
Payne Pritchard. Do you start Pritchard? Do you start Tremont? Tremont's a great defender. I like the I like the spot Tremont starts against a good point guard.
God. Here we go.
Either way, there better be a blowout.
That's all I have to say. This comment.
There better be.
Like Bob. What
He
Maybe
played
a
well
blowout.
against Sacramento.
Everything Bobby just said was so just like deflating after the game we just saw. Exactly. You're gonna see more Teague, some Grant, maybe some Tremont. Mixing a little Carson. Like it's just like, can we just not talk about it until it happens?
That's why I didn't say the rotation was set. It's going to keep changing, and that's why this team's inconsistent ultimately. And that's why we're packaging up everything to shorten the rotation and all the things we did here.
We'll see what happens.
I'm starting Tremont Waters tomorrow, not Jeff Teague.
Bobby Manning has not been fired, but he could be. We're not guaranteeing he's going to be here for much longer, so we'll see. It's like with Brad Stevens rotations, we're on a game by game basis. Okay,
We're seeing if he's losing the chat room here. Then
Let me see it. Yeah.
fire him.
No, Bobby's still winning the chat room. He's doing fine. Nick does well in the chat rooms when he's here too.
People love Nick.
Nickistas, yeah. The Nickistas show up.
Nick might be sliding in for me one of these games coming up if he's available. I know he's a busy man.
I'm not going to make each of the next three, so you'll definitely get Nick in for me on one of those two. So we'll see. But we're here Wednesday, Friday, and then we Sunday again.
Yep.
We got a ton of stuff going.
Right.
We also are talking about doing the Garden Report daily. In addition to games, we will have more information on that. Yeah, I know. We're talking about it. But we'll talk about that. It might involve some different characters as well. But again, thank you guys for watching. We'll say this always. I'm gonna take it one step further. Don't just subscribe. Everybody tell 2 friends to subscribe, okay? We like the community here. Bring in more people into the show, into the chat. We want to keep growing this thing. Bigger, better, badder. Like I said, tell your friends, tell them to subscribe, send them the links, bring everybody in. We love having the crowd. YouTube, both YouTube channels. Also, you can catch us on Twitter and Daily Motion. All of our podcasts on CLNS Media, Josue Pavone with Causeway Street, Bobby Manning with Dome Theory. We run through this every time, but there's an insane amount of stuff that you guys have. We've got a ton more coming out. We had a Celtics beat drop today. The A-List podcast with A. Sherrod Blakely will be out tomorrow. We've got Goodman and Ryan coming out, Cedric Maxwell. So again, you get all of that stuff here. Just make sure you subscribe. But as always, join us here immediately after every game. We're here every game, including West Coast. We take no nights off. Guys, anything else to say?
That's it. We'll see you guys soon.
Tell a couple girls too. My DMs are open, so why not? Mix it up.
It's not what we do here, Jimmy.
Yeah,
Valentine's Day was real low for Jimmy. Yeah.
Guys, girls, what's limited to guys?
I respect it. He's shooting.
Hey.
He's giving it a shot.
Yeah, he's shooting his shot. I mean,
that's not how shooting works. That's kind of like
I just want to grow
the Celtics. It's contagious.
Grow the viewer base.
It's kind of like one of those smart over the head, like backwards,
Pre-game, like from the stands.
The pre-game, yeah. He usually hits one of those. Shoot your shot.
And our producer, Ahmed Batacharji, we want to say thank you there as well, who's sitting here feeding us all of these graphics, and he's been with us. He's a viewer, a loyal fan. So, yes, thank you very much. People asking for job openings. We do have internship positions available. You could email us, info@clnsmedia.com. Anybody, particularly if you're in college and you're looking for an internship for the spring or for the summer, working on Celtics or anything else, by all means, send us a resume, info@clnsmedia.com. Guys, thank you very much for hanging in there.
Josue's looking for an assistant, I think, too. So
Josue's
hit him up on Twitter.
You could be Josue Pavone's personal intern if you want.
No, we've had some great interns working on this show. Shout out to Tim Shales and Bryn O'Shea, who have been working with us the last couple of weeks here. So interns always welcome, and they're getting amazing experience here. Yeah, doing a great job. Thank you to everybody helping us out with the show. Thanks to Jimmy Toscano, Josue Pavone, Bobby Manning. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Is today Wednesday?
Today's Tuesday.
No, it's Tuesday.
Tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.